What's up, barbecue fans? Welcome back to the patio. My name's Jake. You're watching Rum and Cook. Today on the channel, I'm talking about the 5 most common questions that you guys ask me about Yoder and pellet grills in general. Now, it's been 3.5 years since I've owned my Yoder. I have owned another brand, a couple versions of them, but I only had them for about a month. But since I've had my Yoder, I've been extremely happy with it. And you guys in the comments, in emails, in DMs on Instagram, you guys ask me a lot of questions. And the most common question by far is all about the damper. So if you're not familiar with that, on the 640, it's unique to the 640, the 480 doesn't have it. 480 is identical except for it's a little smaller, and it does not have this little magical damper over here. And what that is, the design of it is it's got a little baffle that comes across here, and the thought behind it is when you push it in, it will push the temperatures higher on the left side. When you pull it out, it'll push the temperatures up on the right side. When it's about 6 inches in at factory, it keeps even heat. Now, you guys commonly ask me, where was the damper for that cook, or do you use the damper? And honestly, 99.9% of the time, I do not use a damper. Never touch it. Now, there has been a couple times where I've done a sear and I'm trying to get everything I can get out of it, so I do push it in there and do an open sear, try and keep the temperatures up really high. But in general, I don't use it very often. I actually have a video, I'll link it up here, where I did a test, and I didn't really see a lot of variations. There's a little bit of variations, but nothing you should really be concerned about. And if you ask a dealer about it, they're gonna tell you, in fact, they told me when I was buying mine, don't buy the 640 just because of the damper, right? Buy the 640 because of the size. And for me personally, I'm a firm believer that buy bigger than what you think you need, because you will never complain about having too big, but you'll complain about having too small. So the second common question that I get is all about accessories. It's usually from people who have just purchased one, or they're looking at buying one, and they're like, hey Jake, what accessories do you recommend? And there's a few that I recommend right out of the gate. Stainless steel sleeves for the front and the side. Side, maybe not an absolute needed. Front, absolutely for me, right? And here's why. The default configuration is just the wire racks here. And while they do the job, they're not the most sturdy in the world, especially if you're using a glass, right? Like I've always got something sitting here with me, barbecue utensils, plates, and usually a glass of rum and coke, shockingly. But with those wire racks, I'm always worried that it's not gonna be stable enough for it. So I think the stainless steel sleeves are well worth it to have. The next one is the grease shield. Now, the grease shield cleans up the look of it, and I kind of thought, I don't know if you need that. But what you don't realize is that when you're using mops and barbecue sauces and taking a lot of juicy meat on and off the grill, you would be amazed at how much runs down the front of it, and it just stains it, and depending on how acidic it is, it will eat at the paint. So it just goes on with a lip here. There's a little lip right there, and it just covers the whole front of it. Ignore this brisket, but if you want to find out about that brisket, subscribe, because there's a video coming out where I used an overnight rest on the Yoder to see what would happen for a brisket. Another accessory that I would recommend is this guy right here. This is the half shelf, okay? I haven't used this in a little while because I've been doing a lot of brisket videos for you guys. But here's where this kind of shines, right? I've got the full rack in here. This goes way back in further, so that when you're using to sear and you've got a bunch of meat underneath, it just opens up the bottom, but still gives you room on top to be able to cook things, keep things warm, just rotate around the food. So if you're not doing a big piece of meat like a brisket, this is a great thing to have in there. It just makes it way easier to work on the bottom shelf. The third accessory that is not optional as far as I'm concerned, that's the cover. You want to keep it covered, protected from the elements, especially if you're like me and you grill all year round. The one little caveat that I'll tell you, do not cover this when it's wet. That cover will keep the moisture underneath of it, and it will cause problems with the paint. So Only cover it when it's dry. If you get into a situation where it gets a little bit wet, let it get wet and naturally dry, and then cover it next time. If you live somewhere where it's cold, like -10 Celsius, 20, 25 Fahrenheit, and you do a lot of cooking in the winter, the thermal winter jacket that wraps around the whole thing does a phenomenal job. I have a whole video about that. I'll link that up here. I was actually surprised at the length of time it extended the pellets. I think I almost doubled the length of how long pellets lasted, and it was like freezing rain and everything when I did that test. So it works really, really well. You can't go above 300 or 350, I think, when you use that, and the grease shield has got to come off. So I put that on when I'm doing a cook in the winter and take it off. I don't keep it on long. The last and final accessory that I would recommend or put in the running would be the griddle. That one really depends on how you cook, right? Like I've done some smash burgers on it, I've done some chicken on it. There is a craze going on right now with griddles, right? Lots of people use them. There are channels that are dedicated to various griddles out there, and people love them. Now they are a little bit different to get used to using, I've learned, but once you figure out some of the tricks with them, you can cook a lot of things on them. So that one I'll leave as optional for you. Now we are going to talk about one of my favorite accessories, but I have it as number 3 because I get a lot of questions about the wood-fired oven. You guys have seen me cook 4 or 5 pizzas on here. I've done some wings, I've done some chicken. When I saw that, before I even had my hands on it, I coined it a game changer, because I knew how hot this got when you remove that diffuser plate, right? I can get this up to 700, no problem. I figured if that wood-fired oven worked half as good as I expected it to, it would be amazing, and it would really open up the possibilities for a pellet grill. And I'll tell you what, it did not disappoint at all. I have turned out Neapolitan style pizzas, high temperature pizzas. I've done a ton with it, and it has never disappointed. The greatest thing about it is that I can set my temperature and I can dial it in and forget about it, right? You guys know I've got an Alpha wood-fired oven. I love that thing. It makes amazing food, and the flavor of the wood fire is phenomenal. However, that's an art all in itself, right? Learning how to manage the wood in that is a whole different cooking experience, so the learning curve is a little steeper, whereas this you can just set it and forget it, and you're going to turn out some phenomenal food. Additionally, I made a calzone when I first got it, and you could put a pot on top of it and stir your sauce because it gets super hot on the top, so you can use it for a burner. So if you're into pizza at all, I highly recommend it. It's worth every penny. It will not disappoint. I used to have an uni. I got rid of it. Works great, but again, temperatures all over the place. You can get, your temperatures locked in for a cook, and then you've got to set up your wood again, whereas this is a set it, forget it, and it works phenomenal. The fourth question I get is extremely subjective, and that is, can a pellet grill replace my grill? Or I'll rephrase it and, can you cook for a family of 4 or 6 on a pellet grill and use it like a traditional barbecue all through the week? And it's really up to you. I can't make a call on it. I mean, obviously I've got a little bit of a problem. I've got too many girls. So, I use this a ton for chicken during the week. I love it. I mean, it turns out some phenomenal chicken. I like to marinate chicken, do it 10 minutes aside at 450, 500, and it's done. And I don't have to babysit it. So I do really like that. You can do a lot of wings and everything. Burgers, I typically will make a smoked burger. But I have not actually kind of filled it up and used it to cook an entire meal. It's probably a good idea for a video. But for me personally, because I've got so many options, I just haven't done that. Usually it depends what I'm cooking and what kind of mood I'm in, what kind of flavor I want, and I'll use that grill or barbecue. But I know I have friends who have a pellet grill, they got rid of their gas grill, they do not use anything but their pellet grill, and I know a bunch of them, right? So it's really personal preference. The only kind of drawback to the pellet grill when it comes to that is you have a small sear area, right? So if you're doing steaks for a bunch of people, you've got to sear them. It only takes 3 minutes or whatever per steak, but you can probably only get 3 steaks in there. So sear them, put them on the top rack, sear the next 3, put them on the top rack. and you can turn that around, no problem. You can turn out a large amount of food. Like when I make burgers, I love just to smoke them, and you can smoke a whole bunch, fill up the whole thing. You could do a whole barbecue with them, smoke them, and then just sear them, you know, 2 or 3 at a time, 4 at a time at the end of it, and you get a phenomenal burger. So can you do it? Absolutely, but you have to really make a decision for you. These do take a little bit more time to warm up than say a gas grill. But outside of that, you know, you can cook anything on a gas grill that you could do on here. Same with a lump, really. The advantage to lump, if you're a big steak person, cook it over charcoal, you get that flavor for the steak, and it's pretty hard to beat that. But I've done, you know, cast iron steaks in here. I've done direct sear steaks in it. You can still turn out some great food, but unfortunately, that one, I can't really give you a yes or no on that. You know, I lean towards yes. I just have more than one, so I've not used it for every single thing. If that makes any sense. Before we get into the 5th one, I gotta tell you about the contest. Every video we do a contest. All you gotta do is you gotta be subscribed to the channel, you gotta like the video, and comment down below with 2 hashtags. For this video, we will use hashtag Yoder Smokers, hashtag Pellet Grill. Comment down below using those hashtags, and at the end of the month, I do a drawing for a $25 gift card to appbbq.com. And if you happen to be a Patreon member, starts at $5, I'll double it and I'll make it $50. And I can tell you right now, I just did July's drawings. There's 8 videos in a month and 2 people were Patreon members, so they won $50. So it definitely pays itself off. I will put those in my comment or my community section on my page. I show pictures with timestamps of all the winners from a random comment picker, and I'll reply to your comment and tell you to email me so we can confirm it's you. But take a moment and leave a comment down below with those hashtags so that you can get entered into the contest. Number 5, this is the most common question when it comes to a pellet grill. And it doesn't have anything to do with Yoder, it's just pellet grills in general, and that is, how do I get more smoke? Right? If you come from a drum smoker or Komodo Joe or something like that, you know, you're gonna find out that this does not put out as much smoke. There's a couple things you can do. Number 1, use a high quality pellet. Right? There are a lot of brands out there. I have a pellet test that I did, and I came up with my top 3 brands being Bear Mountain, Lumberjack, and Kingsford. Those were my personal preferences. I know that Naughty Wood makes some. I have not tried them. But if you're gonna cut corners on pellets, you're gonna cut corners on smoke. There's no way around that, right? The other secret is to use a lower temperature. This brisket that's in here, this was on for 4 hours with a smoke tube at 200 before I did anything else. So there's a few tips to get you started. If you want some more, I just so happen to have a video, 11 tips to maximize smoke, and another one with 6 tips that's newer to get more smoke. Check out those videos, and I guarantee you, you're gonna start turning out some delicious food on your pellet grill. Thanks as always for watching. I'll see you soon.